Yeah. So this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart because as I teach a lot of people how to get more out of these tools at work today, like a lot of what I do, because I've built a lot of internal AI workflows and tools for my company. And so a lot of what I do is teaching people how to use this stuff and how to use it well. And the rubber stamping thing is a really big problem because LLMs, one, if left to their own devices, they're very verbose. They like to say more versus say less. They will give you, because it's so easy to generate content with LLMs, the default stuff that it generates is oftentimes a little bit convoluted, a little bit dense, not necessarily super actionable. And so what I think it's important to do is, let's say you're using it to generate follow-up documents from call transcripts or from a call. We've talked about this use case a lot because I think it's a very common one that people are familiar with now.
Hmm.
What you need to be able to do is look at the output of that and say, is this helpful if I were to send this in its raw form to somebody else who needs to make a decision? Meaning, is the actual meat of this lost in a sea of rubbish? Is there too much content here? Is this confusing? If I were to get this with no context, would this help me, or would I have to do more work to understand what's going on? And so I think, one, knowing that you're probably going to want to edit and cut down a good amount of content from what is produced by AI. There is still a human editing component to that I think you want to go through manually as you start to build out these workflows for yourself. And you can't really avoid that time. But we've also talked about building agents and workflows is very much like training a human to do the same task. And so what I find really helpful is, okay, you create some follow-up notes from some calls and you get these docs and they're really long and confusing. You make those human edits and then you can actually instruct the LLM to take these edits, for example, where you say, hey, those last 5 outputs were helpful, but they were too long. I want to cut this section entirely moving forward. I think this overview section was mostly fluff, and the stuff that really matters was actually buried in this section. And so now what you're doing is you're using that human on the loop review to actually create more rigorous instructions for the next time that you automate. And so instead of just letting it go, taking the output and sending it, go through that review process, use that to now create a layer of instructions that are present on every future time that you run that workflow. And now what's going to start to happen is that overview and that editing that you've made is now going to persist across future versions of this document that it creates, which then makes it more helpful. So I think it's important to do that editing cycle, create some new instructions based on the edits that you made, and then give that back to Claude or ChatGPT or whatever and say, hey, here's how I want you to do it the next time around. And that will start to make those autonomous outputs much more helpful and much more consistent. Did you enjoy that sample of Mostly Humans? Then give us a subscribe here or on any podcast platform. I heard it's free and you can unsubscribe anytime. Thanks, everybody.